It will save money in the long run. The implementation of digital IDs would impose a staggering financial burden on taxpayers, with the industry estimating upfront costs of $1.2 billion to $2 billion and annual running expenses at $100 million or more, all while risking the same catastrophic failures that have plagued recent UK government IT projects. Look at the NHS's National Programme for IT, a centralised tech debacle launched in 2002 that ballooned from $6.4 billion budget to over $10 billion by 2013 without delivering key benefits, riddled with delays, contractual disputes, and technical glitches that left patient records fragmented and clinicians unsupported, ultimately dismantled. More recently, the 2020 NAO report slammed the NHS's ongoing digital transformation for failing to learn from that $10 billion fiasco, highlighting persistent risks of poor stakeholder engagement and adaptive failures that could easily doom a national ID scheme to similar waste and unreliability. These aren't isolated blunders, they are systemic, underscoring how digital IDs would compound threats to freedom with impracticality, squandering public funds on a surveillance tool dressed as efficiency. And further logistical nightmares abound. Inadequate infrastructure could lead to widespread system crashes, exclusion of non-digital users, and massive training demands for employers and officials, diverting resources from vital services amid a cost of living crisis. The infrastructure required has immense energy requirements to power the massive data centers needed, handling constant biometric processing, real-time verification, vast databases of personal data, and integration with facial recognition would be enormously prohibitive. Current UK data centers already consume around 2.5% of the nation's electricity, with projections showing demand could rise fivefold or more by 2030 due to digital growth, including AI and related infrastructure, straining the grid further. Adding a centralised digital ID backbone would only exacerbate this, completely undermining the government's own push toward net zero, which is another whole disaster for the country to be covered another time. It's unlikely the grid could reliably maintain necessary levels without substantial new capacity that isn't materialising fast enough amid existing constraints and delays. This could lead to massive power cuts and blackouts, and with the cost of energy continuing to rise, the cost could spiral beyond all current estimates. But it will help those who don't have ID now. The claim that digital IDs will aid the 1 in 10 UK adults without physical ID ignores how the system could exclude others, like the elderly, low-income individuals, rural residents, the homeless or poor, anyone lacking access to the necessary technology or not having the skills, deepening societal inequalities and adding to the gap between rich and poor. Recent data shows this risk is stark. Around 1.6 million people remain offline entirely, while nearly 4.5 million adults, about 8% of those over the age of 16, do not own a smartphone, with that figure rising to over 1 in 4, 28%, among those over 75. Millions more lack essential digital skills. Around 11 million adults struggle with basic online tasks like setting up email or filling forms, making any reliance on apps, smartphones, or internet connectivity for identity verification a barrier rather than a help. Low-income households often can't afford broadband, data plans, or devices, forcing them to ration usage or rely on public hubs that may not be accessible or reliable, making them more vulnerable to hacking and identity theft. Rural areas face additional hurdles with poor broadband coverage, while the homeless, disabled people, and those in deep poverty are disproportionately affected by these barriers, compounding existing disadvantages in accessing jobs, services, benefits, or even basic participation in society. Far from closing gaps, a digital IC system risks widening them dramatically, leaving vulnerable groups further marginalised and unable to prove who they are in an increasingly digital world, turning what the government pitches as inclusion into yet another layer of exclusion for those already struggling the most.